Hi guys, it's Billy and I'm back and sick again. But I had a day off and really wanted to film this case, and it's a lot longer than what I was gonna anticipate, but get your coffee, get your tea, get your snacks and sit down and watch this video. Today's going to be the Lesley Whittle case, which is based in Highley. The murder didn't happen in Highley, that happened in Staffordshire, but the case is actually based in the same village that I live in, so it's really close to home. And it's really interesting because obviously I haven't lived here for the entirety of my life. So it's really interesting to learn about the history and what happened here and what happened to Lesley Whittle herself. So Lesley Whittle was born in 1957. I couldn't actually find the date of her birth. I literally looked everywhere and I could only find 1957. But she was born in Highley to parents George and Dorothy Whittle, and she had a brother who was Ronald. Her father owned the Whittles Company, which owned over 75 buses and coaches, which toured and travelled around the country, and they were really big. He was a really, really big businessman, and all of his money was going to go to his kids. £82,000 was going to Lesley herself when her father died. So her parents were both very wealthy, and they did have a lot to give to their children. So this was always a target for robbers, kidnappers, which is what the case is about. And this is how Donald Nielsen got to kidnap Lesley Whittle. That was all in the newspapers of how much these children were going to get from their father once he died, and it was all over the newspapers. So Donald kind of thought this would be an opportunity to kind of get some money out of the family themselves. So let's go into a bit about the murderer. Donald Nielsen was born on August 1st, 1936, and that was in Bradford, so there was a slight difference in where they were both born. Lesley Whittle was born in Highley, which is in Shropshire, which is near the Midlands, so middle of the country, and Bradford is more up north. Donald Nielsen was a notorious burglar and murderer. His crimes happened from 1971 to 74, so in those few years, he'd already killed 3 people and over 400 robberies. Donald Nielsen, originally Donald Nappy, changed his name because he was bullied at school with the last name Nappy, and I mean, obviously that's not the best last name to have, but he wanted to change it because he had a daughter and he didn't want her to go through the same thing as him. But overall, Donald had quite an unhappy childhood. His mother died when he was the age of 10, and he just from a young age was always into crime, into robbing things, and I think it was even before he was 10, and because he was so young he couldn't actually be convicted of the crimes that he caused. On the 14th of January 1975, Lesley Whittle was taken from her home in Highley. This was found because her mother came upstairs to knock on her door to make sure she was kind of wondering why she didn't come down for breakfast, and when she checked, she wasn't in her bed, there was no sign of her. Dorothy then searched the home and then she found 3 demo tapes, and this kind of affirmed the missing of Lesley Whittle. There was also a ransom of £50,000, and the note said, "You are on a time limit. If there are police or tricks, death." Which obviously means if you involve the police or if you try and trick me, then your daughter's gonna die. Lesley's brother, Ronald, decided that he was gonna phone the police and that, he's gonna let the police know that he can pay the ransom and he doesn't want them involved, but just to let him know that if anything went wrong, this is the situation that's gonna happen. I mean, overall, he did just want his sister back and safe, and they had the money to give to this kidnapper. The police came to the Whittle house the same day and checked for fingerprints. They even brought sniffer dogs, but they soon came to realise this must have been an experienced criminal, as there were no fingerprints, there was no trace. There was literally nothing but the ransom note, which they couldn't find anything of. There was another note left that said that Ronald needed to be at a phone box in the Swan Centre in Kidderminster, which is about half an hour, 45-minute drive from Highley. But due to the fact that there was such a poor communication between the different polices, it did soon spread to the newspapers, and that was when Ronald was pulled out of the phone and they said that he can't go, and that's when he missed the phone call and there was nobody to pick up the phone. 2 further ransom delivery failed over the next 72 hours. This was because of the police coordination. I think it was really poor in this case because they were just all over the shop. They didn't know what was happening. They were just trying to get this girl back. But the police did know that Lesley was still alive because on the second attempt, there was a voice note of her describing to her mum of where to go to deliver the money. So they knew at this point that she was still alive, and the voice note was very calm and collected, and she seemed just really relaxed for the actual situation that she was in. The first attempt, the money was delayed because Ronald didn't know the destination. He just couldn't find it, and it wasn't clear enough of where to put the money. And the second attempt, They were going to deliver it. There was a police car that was not involved at all with the case itself. They were just driving around, you know, like a parole back in the day. And this really scared Nielsen off, and he literally just fled the scene back to where he'd been hiding. It's crazy because the second attempt was literally, they were yards away from where Lesley Whittle was being kept. Donald was obviously getting really annoyed by this, and that's when he began to hide in the shaft that he was keeping Lesley Whittle. Donald started to get really annoyed by this, so he just literally hid. He didn't make any more contact with the police or with the family, and this is where they think that he possibly could have killed Lesley. There'll be further more in the case later on, so if you just keep listening, you'll understand why. It was a week before the police actually had any breakthrough with the case. This is when they searched a local car park 150 yards away from a freight depot, where a day after Lesley was taken, a man was shot. The man was shot 6 times from an intruder, and he was just trying to stop him from getting in. And they did think that this was like an unconnected case, but soon to they realised that this was actually a very connected case. They found this abandoned car, which was a Morris 1300. So the reason they found out that this car was probably stolen is the tax disc was different to the actual registration plate on the car. And if you don't know what a tax disc is, I'm not sure whether you have them in America or everywhere else, but in the UK, we don't have them anymore. They used to sit on the front windscreen in the bottom corner just to say that your car was taxed, and that you could pop out on the road. And if it was different, that means that someone's taken it from a different car and it's most probably stolen, which the car was. So this is when they had reason to believe that they could enter, and they got into the car and they found some really crucial evidence against the case. In the car, there was the gun that was used to shoot the man at the freight depot. There was also tape recordings of Lesley Whittle. I'm not sure what they said, but they found them. Her slippers, unused Dymo tapes, and bullets that were used to kill the 3 people in the post office attack in 1974. And they also had in the car Black Panther masks, which then they realised that they weren't just looking for a general one-off murderer or abductor. They were looking for the Black Panther. And this is kind of when the police decided that this may have changed from a kidnap case to a murder case. Superintendent Booth was the man that was on this case, and he was very, very into this case. He was trying to find this woman, he was trying to find the killer, and he really, really wanted to capture the Black Panther. And he said, "We are hopeful that we will get her back alive. Her brother Ronald has the £50,000 to give to them." In this case, there was so many hoaxes, and I'm not sure why, whether there was a reward if anybody gave any information about the whereabouts of the killer. And I mean, it's just crazy because the police then said that there's so many police that are going out to find this killer who isn't actually where these people are saying that they are. And this led the police to go in the wrong direction and not the right direction. On March 6th, 49 days after her disappearance, the police started to do much more vigorous searches. They did it around the bath pool area and just making sure that they were checking everything. They went back to the Whittle house and just made sure that everything was so checked. Superintendent Booth then did a press conference and said that 2 boys had found a tape that was meant for Ronald. The message that explained, "Drop suitcase in hole in wasteland at Kids Grove." This was literally so close to where Donald had been keeping Lesley, and I just can't believe how close they kept going to this situation. And this is where they started to literally search the whole bath pool area. They recruited hundreds of people, hundreds of police, and so many sniffer dogs. Every single sniffer dog was on this case. Soon enough, the police realised there was a huge underground drainage system going on, and there was lots of underground routes. And later in the investigation, once Donald had been caught, he said that he was going to use that for his escape because there was literally so many little pathways that he could have escaped out of. This one police officer went straight down the pipe, and 45 feet down, they found a cassette tape recorder, and a further 54 feet down, they found a blanket and a sleeping bag. Lesley's body was found naked and hanging from the shaft as such, and she was only 7 inches away from the floor. The post-mortem then also showed that she died weeks before they found her body, so this could have actually been the day that he ran from the police because he thought they were onto him, and he killed her out of like rage and just anger. The immediate cause of death was vagal inhibition, which is a condition that causes sudden death within a second to 2 minutes, and this is caused from severe trauma or stress. And this was soon a manhunt for murder rather than kidnap. And this is where they began to play the tapes on the news. So if people recognised the voice or any sort of sound, just come to the police and let them know that you know who this is. And again, this is where they got hundreds of people saying that they knew this person and they recognised the voice, and they did loads and loads of people, and it just wasn't the right person. So many reconstructions were done, and there was one reconstruction in particular where they actually put this guy in Black Panther clothing, and people still did not know who this guy was. There was also many drawings done, so people who they thought they saw him did drawings, and there was literally no accurate ones, and none of them resembled Donald Nielsen at all. This meant they were nowhere near catching the Black Panther, and this was so infuriating, especially for Superintendent Booth, who was so connected to this case, and he'd been just wanting to get this guy and just put him in prison because he deserved to be in there for life. And this is where a breakthrough happened, and this is kind of where the case ends. And on the 11th of December 1975, Stuart Mackenzie and Anthony White then got into an altercation with a guy with a gun at a post office, and this is where they wrestled him and put him into the back of the police car. This was in Nottingham, so quite a fair distance away from where Lesley had been found. This is where the gunman then got the gun out, and it was just such a crazy experience because he was like, drive me to the nearest village. PC White quickly then grabbed the gun, and PC Mackenzie then quickly stopped the car, and this is where PC White was shot in the hand. There was no severe injuries, but this like sort of loudness that was going on, gunshots, a police car that had just been stopped. This is when two local people from the local fish and chip shop stopped and tried to help these two policemen, because obviously one was been shot and the other one was just trying to wrestle this guy, and this is where they wrestled this man to the ground. Once they tackled him to the ground and then more police came and took him to the police station, they soon realised that this was the guy they'd been looking for, and this was Donald Nielsen, the Black Panther. This was when he was drove to Kids Grove, and he was interrogated for over 12 hours. Donald didn't want to give his name, he didn't want to let them know who he was, he just literally ignored any answer until about 12 hours, and this is when he kind of gave in. He told him what his name was, where he lived, and this is when the police raided his home. They found so many weapons, so many different types of equipment that could kill someone, could cause injury. This is when Donald realised that he had no escape from this, and this is where he admitted to the abduction and the ransom note of Lesley Whittle. On the 30th of March 1976, over a year after the first realisation that Lesley had gone missing, Donald had said that he admitted to accidentally shooting 3 men and kidnapping Lesley Whittle. He said that the gun had gone off by accident and he didn't mean to ever let the gun off. Hundreds of people waited outside for Donald, and once he did come out of the courtroom, people were really violent towards him. This is when they decided that it would not be fair to have the trial held in Staffordshire, but down in Oxford, where it may be more of a fair trial. I mean, this guy's guilty, so wherever it's going to happen, but they want the jury to be fair. And when they went down to Oxford, there was so little crowds, maybe like 10 people waiting outside to see him, not hundreds like they were. On June 14th 1976, Donald's trial took exactly 3 weeks, and this is where he pled guilty to the kidnap and ransom of Lesley Whittle and the manslaughter of the other 3 people that he had killed accidentally. He didn't plead guilty to Lesley Whittle's murder because, one, he said that it wasn't actually him, it was due to trauma, and that she slipped and fell, and that he didn't actually have anything to do with her death. The jury did find him guilty of all these things, so he was guilty of murder of these 3 people, the kidnap, the ransom. On July 21st, 1976, Donald was convicted of 4 life sentences of murder and many more charges, and the judge even said that in your case life means life, and he was never let out of prison, and he died in prison in 2011. That comes to the end of today's case, a bit of a different one, and I mean, it was a really interesting one for me to talk about because it is very close to home. It literally happened where she went missing, on the same road that I live on. So that was today's case. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think my next video may be something a little bit more different, so maybe not a true crime case. But if you do want to know the true crime case, make sure to leave it down below and give me some more suggestions. I do have a little list of ones that I do want to do. I want to do a lot more local cases, and there are some coming up very soon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, so make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video.